Participants, welcome to the February 11th meeting of the City of Tampa Variance Review Board. From my left, the members of the board are
Todd Foltz.
Anna Walrath.
Simone Savino.
Aaron Murphy.
Also in attendance this evening from legal, Susan Johnson Velez and Steve Eister and Lisa Middleton. And I think Ms. Velez has someone she'd like to introduce, Ms. Johnson Velez.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I would like to introduce Maya Mosey. Maya, if you could just maybe wave your hand.
Hello.
Maya is a new attorney in our office, and she's going to be shadowing me with the board for the next few months, and then slowly we'll transition the board
You
representation.
can't leave us.
I will always be around, but
All right.
we're going to transition, and Maya will be the new board representative for,
Well,
for
welcome.
the legal department.
Okay, there are some procedural rules that we need to follow. When your case number and petitioner's name are called, please approach the podium. When you approach the podium, please state your name, your address, and confirm that you've been sworn in. The petitioner or its agent will have 10 minutes to make a presentation. All other persons or participants wishing to speak will have 3 minutes. Then the petitioner will have an additional 5 minutes for rebuttal if needed. The time periods as stated will be kept by the board. Any information such as pictures or plans that have not previously been submitted as part of the petition and that you intend to submit for consideration in support of your petition must be individually presented and accepted by the board. After acceptance by the board, you must submit the item to staff for it to be entered and made part of the permanent record. The board bases its decision on competent and substantial evidence which is submitted and which meets the criteria required by the city's code of ordinances. Please be sure to clearly state your hardship criteria during your presentation. A majority of the board is needed to approve your variance. The variance granted by the board will only be for what is shown on the plans, and it will be in compliance with any terms or conditions stated by the board. All other city codes will need to be met. If the case is approved, your variance will expire 2 years from the date of the decision. If your case is continued, it will either be continued to next month's VRB board agenda or to the next available position on an upcoming agenda. If the case is denied, you may wish to have the Variance Review Board's decision appealed to City Council. If you must file a petition for review of the board's decision, you must file within 14 days of the board's decision. You will not be able to pull any permits until the 14-day review period has passed. Your cooperation for ensuring that this meeting is run smoothly is greatly appreciated. Can I have a motion from the board to approve the minutes from the January 14th meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Okay, it passes. Would you like to swear in the,
Oh, yes, Madam Chair, if I may just
I
inquire
beg
of the
pardon?
board. If any member of the board has had any ex parte communications with anyone with respect to any matter on the agenda this evening?
no ma'am.
Okay, let the record reflect that all board members have indicated in the negative, and so then I would ask if any board members, excuse me, have a conflict of interest with respect to any matters on the agenda this evening.
I don't believe that I have a conflict of interest. I just happen to be acquaintances with the applicant for 25-10.
25-10, Brent and Cassidy Liebler?
Yes.
Okay, so then, Ms. Savino, I would, do you have do you stand to gain any special private gain or loss as a result of your decision if you voted on it this evening?
No.
Okay, and upon hearing the evidence at the hearing and reviewing the record, are you able to make an impartial decision on the matter?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Would you like to swear the board in? I mean, the guests in?
Would everybody stand, raise their right hand? Do you swear all the time to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay. Mr. Eisert, you ready for the first case?
Good evening, Board. The first case on the agenda tonight is VRB-1040-41. This is a continued case. The board requested additional site plans to work around the reconfiguration of some grand trees. So just a quick review. This is In East Tampa, the address is 5112 North 22nd Street. The property is zoned commercial intensive. The request is to remove 2 grand trees to expand the commercial use. This is a map of the site. These are the 2 trees in question. So this is grand tree 6 per the site plan. It's 36-inch DBH with a condition of B7 and is worth 27 mitigation trees. This is the second grand tree in the request. It's a B8 grand tree, 37-inch DBH, and the mitigation is 23 type 1 trees at 2.5-inch DBH. This is the site plan. As you can see, G7 and G6 are located right here and right here. This is the proposed site plan that shows a parking area and is what created the request to remove the 2 grand trees. So the applicant sent in new alternative site plans showing some parking variations that were requested by the board, showing different ways they could create islands in the parking lot to preserve the trees. So this is alternative 1. As you can see, 2 large islands have been created, one for the grand tree here and one for the grand tree here. One thing I'd like to note too is with the expansion of this parking area down here at on the south, by an error there was a 30-inch grand tree here that was impacted. We have already spoke with the client before the hearing today, and they're going to make some adjustments to preserve that tree. That tree is not on the request to be removed. That tree will be preserved, and then the parking adjustments will be figured out through either a DE1 or through the parking reductions allowed by East Tampa, which we'll talk about at the end of this. This is alternative site plan 2, which removes the large island in front of this building and removes this tree to create this bay of double parking. And then this grand tree will maintain in the island it's still in. And then down here you can see the large amount of double bayed parking as well. So for this site, 52 spaces are required. This plan has 55 spaces. And that's why we kind of had that conversation about adjusting some of the parking to recreate this island where this grand tree is here. This is alternative site plan 3, which shows a large island here, preserving this tree, and then it removes, the counterpart island on the other side to make up for the parking that was lost. So the review comments stayed the same. Natural Resources still found it inconsistent because of the site plan showing the other grand tree that wasn't initially requested being impacted. And then with just the different parking options, a reduction in parking could be seen to preserve the trees. These are the East Tampa parking reductions that was referenced in the comment. I just wanted to add those into the slides so you guys could read those. So parking reductions may be utilized for the following criteria: reuse of an existing structure with no increase in intensity. This would qualify that, but because of the square footage that they're adding, that's what disqualifies them from that. The main ones we're going to focus on are E, which is up to 10% of required parking may be offset with the installation of bicycle racks at the rate of one vehicle stall per 5 bicycle slots. So that was what we're going to use to kind of adjust the parking for that other grand tree and to reduce the overall parking from, say, 52, they can reduce it by 10%, so they can reduce 5 spaces. So that gives them a little more play in the site plan as well to kind of work around those trees. And then they also have the option of, if they did end up combining the buildings, that would give them a 25% decrease in parking. So I just wanted to kind of go over the big, the big options that would be available to them by right. So they would need no additional applications to come in and get those reductions. This is the natural resources site analysis, which is very similar to what you see on the site plans shown today, utilizing this large blue box at the bottom for additional parking. And then they're removing poor quality grand laurel oaks in the bottom, and then a grand camphor. So none of those 3 trees removals would require a variance. The G2, G1, G7, and G6 are all preservation quality, grand live oaks. So they're here for G7 and G6. And then these are the standards for grand tree removal. And then I'm available if you have any additional questions. And then I believe the applicant is here. I'll leave it on that for right now. Do you guys need the projector or the document? Okay,
I'll just put it right here, right?
there you go. It's all set.
Thank you.
There are only four people here.
Right, can we zoom in? Zoom in. Oh, okay, good. Good evening, Sam Araf, 13250 North 56th Street, and I have been, I confirm I was sworn in.
Will Crawford, 1907 East Hillsborough Avenue, and I've been sworn in.
Okay, so as Stephen said, we thank you for another chance to present our case. So as Stephen said, we came up with 3 alternatives. I'll just go through the good, the bad, and the ugly for each. So this is alternative 1. By preserving the 2 oak trees in question. The issue with this, and we talked to Stephen earlier, his Natural Resources Department will work with us on some of the requirement that is not met, and hopefully it will be to his approval. So the first issue I'd like to discuss that this alternative is not preferred because it does not currently meet city code. Right in this area, which is the path of ingress and egress, we require 24 feet. We can go down to 22 feet with the city requirement. That's for in and out to these 5 parking. The other issue is the garbage, the trash truck. When he goes up to pick up these dumpsters,
Mr.
he's,
Our attorney has some explanations she wants.
So this is addressed to everybody in the audience who has a case before the board this evening. So because there are only 4 board members, you have the option, anyone has the option if they would like to request a continuance until there's at least 5 board members. That's your right to ask if you would like to do that.
thank you. Okay. The second issue is that when the trash truck comes to pick up the dumpster in here, he will be driving within on the protective radius of this tree. The other issue I'd like to discuss, the required parking currently is 52. With this alternative, by expanding the site all the way to the west, the most parking we can get is 44, so that's 8 less than what's required. So from a development standpoint, this alternative is not preferred. The second alternative, is by preserving one tree and removing the other tree. And here's the tree that we will be preserving. And as you see, we gain more parking. Actually, we gain more parking what's required, 52 to 55. The issue with this is that the trash truck will still impact the protective zone. But talking to Stephen earlier, he killed the excitement of having more parking. And this tree that he mentioned earlier, 33-inch on the west, I really did not realize that we're impacting that large tree. So from the excitement of getting more parking, I overlooked it. But we can certainly preserve it by removing more parking and end up at the required parking of 52. So the drawing will be revised to protect that tree. The third alternative, which is the preferred alternative, is that we preserve the tree at the entrance and then remove the tree that will be impacted by the trash truck. And we will remove the parking on the west side to preserve that tree that I thought we could remove, but we're not going to remove it. We're gonna preserve it. So these are the alternate, and this is the preferred one that we see it's feasible for this project. Now, we talked about getting a parking reduction. You know, it's really nice for the city to offer that, but, you know, this project requires more revenue than parking reduction. If you don't have the parking, you don't have the revenue. And that's really important for this project. We meet all other criteria, but with the support of trying to just remove that one tree on the north. With that, I'll leave it to it.
So, so that, we just kind of, we wanted to come up with some of the alternatives. I mean, we talked about last time, you kind of wanted us to go back to the drawing board. Now, we would love to not continue to have to pay a civil engineer to kind of redesign. So we hope that the third alternative works well, and we'll be able to move forward with that and work with Stephen to make sure that we protect that third tree to the west. So.
Does that conclude your?
Yeah, that concludes. Yeah.
Sorry, okay. Is there anyone here to speak for or against? Guess not. We have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
We have questions first.
We have questions first? I'm sorry, I had a coughing fit and I was kind of distracted there. Questions from the board?
Yes. Do you mind putting the third site plan option back up? And so what's pointed out as I believe it's the dumpster enclosure, or is it the,
It's right here is
Pavers?
a dumpster enclosure.
okay,
Currently, there is an existing one dumpster, but the city require two, so we put it next to it, and they require also an enclosure.
so I guess my question was, is this the only location for those dumpsters, or is this just, the best location, or best/only? How did we end up with the dumpsters
Okay.
where they are?
Okay, we ended up, because that's the current route now to that existing dumpster. So the truck will come through 22nd Street, go up, drive up to it, and just short distance back up, and then continue going north that's where he exit, on Frierson. We looked at putting it here. Today, actually, we looked at that, but then there would be an impact to this tree. We're gonna remove parking to preserve this tree. So you look around, there is no feasible route for the truck to come in, pick it up, drop it, and have a proper turnaround.
And thank you. And if you don't mind going back to the option 1, there was some of the discussion at the south portion of that plan that I didn't hear you. Do you mind repeating just the lay of the land of what some of the drawbacks were you had said were with this plan?
This width here is supposed to be 24 feet, but the city can live with 22 feet. That's the in and out for these 5 parking. The city requires handicap parking next to the building, and that's really the primary use of that building is the restaurant. So we have that restriction here, but Steve, thanks to him, he can overcome that. We can put pavers within the protective tree zones to widen that path. The second issue is this dumpster. As I said earlier, the truck will go up to it, but then he will be within this tree protective zone. We could overcome that by putting pavers. What we cannot overcome is the number of parking And now, we're gonna remove about 2 to 3 trees from the west to preserve that tree on the west. So this number will reduce from 44 to about 41, 42 parking. So overall, we could lose about 10 to 11 parking from the required parking.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Excuse me, any other questions?
Am I looking at this correctly, that the two that were in question, that the original request was to take out both G6 and G7, correct?
Correct, yes.
And G6 and G7 are G6 is a B7 and G7 is a B8. Is that correct, the ratings? That's what I see in the Arborist report? That probably is, Mr. Eister, that's a,
Yeah.
Probably a question for
Not
you.
really good on the numbers of G and B.
the G6 and G7 trees, I'm reading the Arborist report, I want to make sure I get this right, that they're G6 is a B7 and G8 is a B8?
Correct.
Okay. And B8 being worse than B7, that's the structure is fair but not,
Correct, but I would focus more on the B than.
Right.
Because the other number is just kind of a snapshot. So like say if there's a dead limb in the tree, that might reflect a higher number. So I'd focus more on the overall condition, which they're the same. So I think you're kind of working with,
and so you guys would be willing to accept an approval to remove, that would go to alternate 3, which would remove B6 but not B7, correct?
Right, and one of the reasons I forgot to mention, this tree has low overhanging branches. So it's gonna require trimming, and a lot of trimming. So because of the constraint of the site, we prefer to just remove it completely.
So
This one has higher branches that it would not require much trimming, but this one to the north it will.
yeah, I mean, I definitely see the problem trying to keep both trees. I do appreciate you guys working to try and figure out a way to save at least one of them.
Thank you. But this tree here on the west, I take blame for it, not realize that we're impacting it, but we are definitely going to preserve it.
So hopefully you can move the drive aisle over and maybe just,
Oh, correct.
Put some
We'll
dead-end
just
spaces at the
remove a
end.
couple of these parking.
And switch it down
This
to the
will
end.
require a 20-foot protective radius.
Oh, I see.
We can accomplish that.
okay.
And Mr. Eister, the tree that's being protected is another nice preservation quality live oak?
that is correct.
So that's the 33-inch there on the southwest?
Correct.
And a question for staff too, or applicant. So alternate 3, even if, so this provides for 55 spaces? Is that correct?
Actually, it's gonna be less because we're gonna remove parking here on the west. So we will end up back to the required parking of 52.
Okay, and then there was some code provisions that they would automatically qualify for if they met in your presentation for staff. Is that something that would automatically be applied over the 52 and lowered it if they go forward with this plan?
That is correct. So they have the 52 that's required. If say they decided to utilize the bicycle parking provision, they could get a 5-space reduction to say increase the green spaces around the trees, or like that could be something that could be utilized at say the time of permitting, if say there's root conflicts, things like that. Kind of gives them a little more flexibility to provide these large green spaces like we see around the grand oak they have up. And then if the grand oak, the 33-inch grand oak needs additional space, they could utilize those reductions. And those are by right in the overlay.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
Do you guys think that the alternate 3 would provide for successful parking for the restaurant if you have enough parking there? That's, I think I count another
Yes.
12 spaces or so,
Yes, we do.
13.
No more questions?
And then just one last comment. With any of the parking stuff we're talking about now, because this is an overlay in East Tampa, they can get a design exception to allow for greater reductions here or there. I just wanted to put that on the record.
So the design exception would be layered on top of this criteria?
That is, so like say if they wanted to use a reduction in parking to preserve grain trees, that would be their their reasoning behind the design exception, then we would review it, and then we could grant the reduction.
Yeah, and I guess I'm only asking because it sounds like, what's required is 52. They're able to get to that number. If it's significantly below, it's going to make a disservice to their own business. So I was just curious how low it could actually go in reality, and it might not. And then at that rate, could we have saved another tree?
It's, at the end of the day, it kind of breaks down to how much parking is needed, how much parking can be eliminated, if they utilize the alternative parkings too, we kind of look at that as well. So it kind of is a mix of all the different components. But they do have parking options, I guess, is the best way to say it.
Anything else?
If I may say,
You've got 5 minutes to rebut anything that's gone on, so you're
Okay.
welcome to do that.
okay. I appreciate what Steve said and the offer to go through design exception and so forth, but parking is tied to revenue. If we have less parking, especially for a restaurant, even 52 is not enough, but we meet the requirement. So if anything less than parking, we'll have to look at less revenue, and the project may not be feasible at all, because the tenant that will come and occupy that restaurant, if he doesn't see the revenue, he or she may not pay the rent, it may become a loss to them. So that's really important. Parking becomes really important in this.
And please keep in mind, East Tampa is a known food desert, and we're trying to bring some healthy food options to East Tampa, so we want to make sure it's a successful business.
We appreciate your efforts. Okay. Zach, anything else you wanted to add? Close the public hearing and hear from the board? Or did you want to say something else?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's hear from the board.
I mean, I appreciate the fact that they were willing to work with us and go back and save one of the 2 trees. I'm in favor of the alternate 3. I think that that's a good solution. It provides a feasible project. They've got good parking in those buildings, and
So,
I'm in favor.
so board, I just want to remind, so the criteria for hardship, I know that it gets a little confusing when we're dealing with trees, but the reasonable reconfiguration is what you use to determine whether there may or may not be a hardship, right? If there is a possibility to reasonably reconfigure the site that will preserve the trees, then maybe there is not a hardship, and the board can consider those facts. And similarly, if they cannot reasonably reconfigure to save the trees, then there may be a hardship. So I just want to remind, because I know sometimes there's a couple of extra things that come into play when we're dealing with the tree removal.
So, I mean, I'd like to be able to authorize the taking of is it tree number 6? If that's G6, is it possible we can do a partial or with conditions, and then just say we can take,
Well-
we're approving it with conditions that one of the trees can be removed, the other one cannot?
Well, the board needs to determine as to each tree whether or not the site can be reconfigured in order to preserve the trees. And again, if it can be, then there may be, but the board may decide that there's not a hardship. If it cannot be, if you determine that it cannot be, then that would lean towards maybe there is a hardship. So that's up to the board. It can't, I mean, it should not be a, let's make a deal, save
Sure.
this tree and you can remove that one, right? It's gotta be based on a hardship, because that's how the board is authorized to grant variances.
So from my perspective, I see a hardship with keeping both trees. I think if you try to keep both trees, there is a definite hardship. The G6 provides a hardship that is really unworkable from a parking and adaptability.
Just to be clear, is G6 the tree that's right in front of the dumpster?
Yes.
Because,
Correct.
okay, I just want to make sure. I have mine mislabeled, but I want to make sure that we're,
If you look at the arborist report, I think,
No.
the first page.
Nope.
because
You were- you were right. You're right.
G6 is in the center.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry,
if
you're
we're
right.
talking about
G7, you're talking about G7. Thank you.
yeah,
Thank
I
you.
just want to be clear.
I apologize. Yeah, so G7 is the one where, I believe G7 creates the hardship.
I agree.
Yes. So you want to
So
make
with that, I will go ahead and attempt to make this motion correctly. If I make something wrong, please correct me. I move that the variance request for case VRB 24-41 for property located at 5112 North 22nd Street, granted as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing for removal of the grand oak tree based upon the petitioner meeting the burden of proof regarding the 6 factors determining the tree removal as set forth in section 27-284-2.5 T4 of the city code for granting tree removal, specifically the evidence provided. Actually, where on this one do I add the?
So I would suggest maybe making 2 motions, because it is a request to remove 2 trees. So if you're
Okay.
going to take different action, I would take action as to G7 and then action as to G6.
So which one, the denial first or the approval first?
It's up to you.
Okay, well, I'll continue with this one. I will do, this is approval for removal of tree G7. For granting removal, provided that the evidence of the record showed that there's really no good way to reconfigure the site to make parking, to keep the parking necessary to make a viable project and to make the site work.
I'll second.
Anyone want any discussion? Not call the question. All in favor of the motion as stated signify by saying aye.
Aye?
Likewise? Okay, it's moved.
All right, then I'll make the second motion, the move for the variance request of VRB 24-41 for property located at 5112 North 22nd Street for removal of a grand tree be denied due to the failure of the petitioner to meet the burden of proof regarding the 6 factors for determining reasonable use as set forth in section 27-284.2.5 F4 of the city code requiring for granting tree removal, specifically that the petitioner has demonstrated that the site with their alternative 3 is reconfigurable, therefore does not meet the burden of hardship.
Second.
Motion is
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion as stated signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed likewise? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next case, please.
The next case on the agenda is VRB-25-01. The owner is Asante Monique and Tad Pu. The applicant is Ryan Marsh. The property address is 517 West Plaza Place. The zoning is residential single-family, RS50. The request is to reduce the front yard setback along North Woodrow from 20 feet to 3 feet for the construction of a pool deck area. This is code section 27-156. Regulations for RS50 district setbacks are 20 feet front, 20 foot in the rear, and 7 foot on the sides. The previous actions are BLD-24-0511-065, which is an interior remodel, and then BLD-22-0493122, which is construction of the current home. This is a map of the site. As you can see, the house sits on the corner of Plaza and Woodrow. This is the overall site plan. The house is set back 20 feet from both West Plaza and from North Woodrow. Those are acting as 2 front yards, and then the property then has 2 corresponding side yards at 7 feet. And then the area highlighted in blue is the area for the proposed pool area. This is a zoom in of that area showing the 3 feet from the corner of the pool here to the property line, which is where the reduction from 20 feet to 3 feet comes from. Natural resources found it consistent with conditions. The rear yard, or the other front yard, is where the mitigation plantings were installed for the house construction, so those will need to be relocated or replanted. Transportation, wastewater, water, and right-of-way found it consistent. Stormwater found it consistent with conditions to verify the impervious percentages at the time of permitting to make sure they don't go over 50%. TECO found it consistent with conditions. Urban design found it inconsistent, and that memo was attached. There is currently a 6-foot fence in what's in the front yard that is kind of acting as the rear yard in this photo. And then due to the code section of a pool being in the front yard, that's the other portion that was brought up in the urban design memo. Just as a Cliff Note version. These are the standards for the Variance Review Board under section 2780. And that'll be available if any questions or concerns. And I'll leave the site plan up.
someone here for the case?
Hello. Thank you guys for hearing us. Yeah, my client is a 24-year military veteran.
Name?
I'm sorry.
Address?
Sorry. My name is Ryan Marsh. My address is 5830 Silver Sun Drive.
And have you been sworn in?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Like I said, my client, a 24-year military veteran, purchased the house in South Tampa and moved there. He has 3 young children, would like to have a pool in his backyard. He found my company. I went out there and I said, hey, you know, you have 3 feet right now to play with, so we can't really build a pool with what we have at the moment. Let's see if we can get a variance approved to put a pool in your backyard. He does have a unique situation because he has 2 front yards, basically, being on the corner lot there. And we came up with a relatively small pool, in fact. It's only 11 feet in width, so it's relatively narrow to fit the space without eating too much real estate. And yeah, not a ton from me. There's no trees in the way or anything fun like that. But yeah, we're just trying to put a pool in his back front yard, if you will.
You don't have any plans or anything?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. I have extra plans here if you'd like to see those, but they're the same that you're looking at right now, I believe.
Well, we have them, but the rest of the guys here don't, so.
I'm sorry?
I said, we have them, but no one else in the audience
Oh, I
does.
apologize. This is my first time doing this, if you can't tell.
That's okay.
Yeah, so once again, here is North Woodrow. There's West Plaza. This is the front of his house, where his driveway is right here. And this is the proposed area for the pool and deck area. And there's actually no deck with this pool. It's so there's not going to be any pervious added to the area. It's going to be all landscaping around the pool. And it's currently within the setback where his fence is at. So it's not, we're not taking up any more real estate in regards to that. The fence on the line here is set back there. Right now, it's currently 9.1 feet away from the start of the road, and the pool would be 3 feet within from that, so it'd be 14.1 feet in from the road where the water's edge starts.
Okay. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. Is there anyone here to speak for or against? Okay, and questions from the board?
I have a question. So mitigation plantings were mentioned by staff, and this might be a question for staff. Where are they now? Why do they exist? And where would they be relocated?
For his trees he has currently?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the ones that were put in are currently on the fence line, like literally touching the fence on the edge of his property here, and they're going to stay there. They want to be moved. What is currently there is going to be there.
Okay, so nothing is being relocated? I thought there was something that was going to be relocated on the other side of the front lawn.
Good evening, board. I put it as a condition, just in case when it gets to the permitting phase, I want the owner to be aware. If these trees do come out, they are required to be back. So, as mitigation trees, they are required, most likely from previously removed trees from what was on the site when the home was built in 2022. So, I just wanted to make the applicant aware and the homeowner aware that if these trees are impacted by the construction of the pool or by the contractor of the pool, that they will be responsible to put those back.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The pool is uncaged, it's just out open?
Yes, ma'am. It'll be unscreened.
And then, so the distance now to the fence from the property line is how far?
From the fence to where the fence is on his property line, I believe is the question, like on the very edge here. So the pool is going to be 3 feet closer to his home from where the fence currently is.
And sorry, I can't read it, it's just a little too small
I'm
where
sorry,
I am.
yeah.
So the fence sits how far back from the property, from the curb or
From the curb, it's 9.1 feet from the curb.
Okay,
And then the water's edge would be 3 feet in from there.
thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any further questions? You have 5-minute rebuttal if you'd like.
No, ma'am. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, close the public hearing.
So I do have one other question.
Yes, sir.
For the aesthetic of the neighborhood, you know, he already has a fence that's running along North Woodrow Avenue. Does the neighbors have those type of continuing fences down the block? Or-
No, there are not many,
So
many of
it's
those
just
fences.
kind of sticking out there. If the fence wasn't there, the pool would kind of be out.
Correct, it
further
would be
to Dawson's
exposed, yeah.
Fence. Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. Steve, did you have another comment?
Yeah, real quick to add on to the fence comment. 6-foot fences aren't allowed in front yards. So even if the fence were to stay, it would still be a 3-foot fence. So you still wouldn't be able to see the pool. Like, you would just have a 3-foot fence. Yeah. If they wanted to do see-through, they could do it at 4 feet. But if they wanted to keep it solid like they have it now, it would be 3 feet.
So the fence is gonna have to be replaced no matter what, is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
to resolve the code case that they have, but I think that's separate from this pool situation, if that makes sense.
Okay,
Yeah, I
Alright.
just didn't want you guys to factor the fence into as one of the factors. Because it is
Understood.
gonna be reduced down to 3
it is
feet.
gonna be, something's gonna have to be done about the fence one way or another.
That is correct.
Okay.
Sure, they're gonna have to meet all other code and all other requirements from all other departments, even if the variance is granted.
Correct.
Okay,
And that's why I was asking on this site plan, because I don't want this site plan to somehow approve a fence that's in a location that's not, it's not supposed to be, or at a height that it's not supposed to be, because that's what we're approving tonight is what's stated.
Correct.
So-
So the request will be for just the front yard setback on North Woodrow only to be reduced from 20 feet to 3 feet for the pool. That is all that was noticed, so that's all that can be approved tonight.
I mean, when we approve a variance, it's based on the site plan, so if the site plan shows a 6-foot fence, we just wanna make sure that that is non-compliant, so it's gonna be taken care of one way or another.
That is correct.
Okay.
It's not being approved through this
That's not an
motion.
issue that we have to,
Yeah.
Can condition our approval, just to be clear if we wanted to.
I don't think that's necessary because of the way the variance request was written. It gets noticed this way, that it's been for the pool and deck area, it does not call out the fence. And then that pool and deck is referenced on the site plan. If they wanted to do something else and request a separate variance for the fence, it would have to come back in front of us because it wasn't noticed to the neighborhood that way.
I understand, I'm just concerned that because it's there, because it's on the site plan that we have,
And we have had situations, sorry, but we have had situations where, although it wasn't the subject of the variance, people have come back and said, well, it says it on my site plan, and you approved the site plan, therefore you approved everything on the site plan. So I would ask the board, particularly in light of your discussions, to be very specific about your approval.
okay,
What you are approving and also what you're not approving.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we kind of took a little bit of your time there after, came back. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No, ma'am, that is it.
Okay, so close the public hearing and hear from the board.
Well, our discussion is pertinent in that, my concerns are just that, what's stated is what's gonna be recorded officially. So I would be in favor of just conditioning, the setback, with the height of the fence, or just making sure that the height is complied with. You had great language with what you just said, all other codes are complied with.
I think as long as you, when you say for the construction of a pool only, no other structures, that very specifically says only
Okay.
pool. So I think that's how you condition it without having to put a condition.
Okay.
Yeah, one of my neighbors has similar situation, and they have a lovely pool, fence that's open and it's the right height. And then they have like 8-foot, trees behind it, so just wanna make sure that we're clear here, that I'm not reporting them, I'm not saying who they are, but it's just some things that can be gotten around, we just wanna make sure that that doesn't happen. You ready for a motion?
Do you want to do it? Or you want-
I can't, so.
All right, I'll give her a shot. All right. I move that the variance request for case VRB 25-01 for property located at 517 West Plaza Place be granted as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing for a construction of a pool only, based upon the applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence in the record of this public hearing for unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria, is set forth in section 27-80 of the city code, specifically that the only place you could put a pool was on the side there, and it is acting as a backyard because he has 2 front yards.
I have a motion, is there a second?
Second, I don't want to keep belaboring the point. I think that's clear enough. Maybe we just clarify too that, I don't want to mess this up.
Would you take a friendly amendment that
Sure.
says
Wait, wait a minute.
what would you like to add, Simone?
That the fence be
Meet code?
code compliant.
All right, can I amend that to add behind the for construction of a pool only to add, and that the fence will meet all existing code requirements?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion as stated, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed likewise? Okay, passes. Thank you. Okay, next case. Moving right along.
The next case on the agenda is VRB-24-10. The owner is Brent and Cassidy. Their property address is.
Excuse me, 24-10, 25-10,
25-10.
thank you.
3705 West San Pedro Street. Its zoning is residential single-family, RS50. The request is to reduce the rear yard setback from 20 feet to 7 feet. The code section in reference is section 27-156, table 4-2, with RS50 setbacks are 25 feet, or 20 feet from the front, 20 feet in the rear, 7 feet from the sides. Any previous action was a BLD from 2016, and that was for a renovation. This is the property as it currently exists. It's highlighted in the orange dashed line. So this is the current site plan highlighted in blue. That's what's currently existing, is a wood addition. The lines on this side is what they're proposing. It's very faint, but this is the outline of the house. And they want to extend the porch area 7 feet from the rear setback. And we'll zoom in on the next slide. So this is a zoom in of the proposed porch. So it's gonna follow this side of the house. It's gonna stay in line, extend back to 7 feet from the property line, and then line up where the old porch was as well. And this is gonna go up, and it's gonna be 18 feet by 21 feet 5 inches. And the owner has stated that they will leave the structure open and will not be enclosed. Natural resources found it consistent with conditions. During the construction phase, additional information can be requested. Transportation, wastewater, water, right-of-way, stormwater, all found it consistent, and TICO found it consistent with conditions. This is the criteria for the variances. And then I'm available if you guys have any comments or concerns.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Petitioner wants to come forward?
Top camera's up. If you want to put any photos up.
Thank you. Thank you. Brent Liebler, 3705 West San Pedro Street, and I have been sworn in. Stephen had mentioned this is a request to change the setback on the rear property line from 20 feet to 7 feet. We purchased the home in May 2019. 2 years ago, decided to explore the idea of putting in a new deck as well as a covered structure above it, similar to what we have now. And in that process, discovered that the existing deck is also in violation of the rear setback, in that the current deck extends 10 feet from the rear of the house, 15 feet from the rear property line, so in violation of the 20-foot setback. That is the hardship that the hardship is that we inherited the violation, and also limited by the layout of the house. There is one entry point from the rear of the house. It's one door swinging outward into the yard. And that is not at ground level, that is elevated. So that almost dictates or requires that there be an elevated platform or deck structure there at the rear of the house where the door is. And also the convenience of having that in place now and immediately walking out to an enclosed structure with shade and protection from the elements. In terms of the requested dimensions, 18 by 10, or I'm sorry, 21 and a half feet wide is the exact width of the house before it kind of angles downward, and then 18-foot setback, and that was largely based on meeting with some design teams, and what we were looking for was really enough space to have adequate room for a dining area with ample room to walk around that, as well as a recreation play area for our 2 young children. I will also add that, and I have some pictures I can share as well, the western portion of the existing deck, which you can see there, kind of the curved line on the southwest side of the home, I'm sorry, the northwest side of the home, that will be, on the western half, that will be removed. Everything left of that square will be removed. And the net result is, even with this new deck structure, the overall square footage will only increase roughly 60 by 65 square feet compared to what is there today. Additionally, we had updated tree topographical survey done showing no protected trees in violation or within a violating the distance requirement to this proposed structure and accompanying foundation.
You mentioned you had photos?
Yes, this is a picture of the deck as it stands today, and that portion marked with green painter's tape will be removed. And that is where the new deck will start there, or I'm sorry, end, and come right out. And this will be, here's kind of a marking showing where the new proposed deck would extend out to. That is 18 feet from the rear of the house and 7 feet from the rear property line.
And what do you see your hardship here as?
The hardship is that we inherited a violation of the setback already and just trying to replace the existing deck. The existing deck is already in violation. And also, as I mentioned, there's just the one rear door there, which kind of dictates that any new structure would likely have to go there anyways, because it would need to be an elevated platform. The rear door is roughly 15 or 16 inches above ground level, which is what would require an elevated platform or some type of deck structure.
I have a question for Mr. Eister on the TICO comment. I don't see any power poles or anything in this photo, but I'm assuming TICO is concerned because there is some sort of rear easement for their utilities.
Yes, so behind this property, or behind this hedgerow, I believe there is an easement. If I remember correctly, there is like an alley with easements that runs through it behind it. Typically, as long as they stay out of the easement, which they won't be allowed to get a permit for
Right.
anyways, but
Can you confirm there is an existing rear alleyway?
There is not.
There is not.
There's
Okay.
not.
then there might just be a old easement that's back there that they would have to stay away from with underground lines.
On the other side of that hedgerow there is a shed structure on the neighboring property that's only about a foot from the property line.
Okay. Does that conclude your presentation?
It does, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here to speak for or against? You have 5-minute rebuttal if you wanted.
I'm all set, thank you.
All right, close the public hearing and hear from the board, please.
Okay, in regards to hardship, I understand your hardship for grandfathering in the existing deck, but what's your hardship for extending it?
Outward more.
Yeah, I mean, what is it? Is it because there's not enough? I can't tell you what, but you need to tell us what a hardship, a reason you needed to make it bigger, not the existing deck that's there. Like, if you were coming for a variance to grant to your existing that you bought it, then that would be an easy way, but that's a hardship for that. But you're looking for a hardship that you need to grow it by another
8 feet.
8 feet, right?
Right.
So, I mean, it could be something that I don't have room to put.
Yeah, we did
Playground,
explore,
That's,
Sure.
you need to help us with a hardship there, of what that is.
it's really limitations with, we did explore doing a detached structure or something off the, elsewhere in the yard, and we're really limited with what we can do in terms of having something that's, feasible for what we would like in a covered area, really. And also, what's there now on the western side is not really usable space. outside of that, the hardship is really just that we inherited a violation and trying
Do
to
you
then
mean-
extend that.
Do you mean the western side, like the curved portion of the deck? which is
Correct,
not usable?
right. And in exchange for trying to push it out another 8 feet would remove that, which of course, that portion is not in violation of the rear setback, but in reality, the overall square footage of the new deck is just a little bit more than what's there today. So we're really just kind of picking up, making it a regular shaped deck that really doesn't have much functionality and trying to make it more functional.
Okay, so are you saying that your hardship would be that keeping a deck within the current bounds is not to make it, taking that piece off would make it unusable and not large enough for
Right,
an assembly area in the back?
right.
Is there a hardship why you wouldn't use it do it as a detached structure? I believe the separation is 3 feet or 4 feet?
The hardship of doing an attached structure,
Detached.
A detached structure.
the hardship would be, I think, that you have to be 5 feet from the house and then also 3 feet from the rear property line, I believe, which at that point, we're down to, I think, 12 feet, or you know, we're right back to kind of where we are now with the current dimensions of the deck.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why I asked what I asked.
I know.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
No, not offhand.
Okay. I understand your point, Todd. If you were asking us to grandfather in what's already there because it's not compliant, that's one thing, but to make it bigger and, more non-compliant, I don't see the hardship for doing that. I understand you want to make it bigger, but that's unfortunately not part of the hardship criteria that we have to follow in order to grant a variance. So, I'm only one vote on the board and I can't even make a motion, so it's up to my fellow board members here to propose something.
Since we asked you some additional questions, you do have an additional rebuttal period before we make a motion.
Just reiterating that, I'm really just trying to take the western portion of the deck and moving it over to kind of combining it with the existing structure that comes right off the rear entry point or exit point of the house. And the net effect is the overall square footage really does not change too much.
Okay. We are in board discussion or a motion.
Let's do board discussion.
If you have something else you want to add.
Just between us. Go ahead. I mean,
All I was gonna say was the east yard setback is not being affected, so just pointing that out. It's going to jut out straight, so it's really just the south. The rear.
I guess when I look at this is, if there were not any deck there now, and you came before us and said, I'm going to build a new one, and I want to take it down, this setback in the rear from 20 feet to 7 feet to add a deck, would I see that as a reasonable request and hardship? And unfortunately, I don't see that. So,
Did I exhaust my
sorry.
rebuttal?
We're
yes, we're
we're
discussing.
closed.
So, I mean,
I think I may disagree with you a little on that. I mean,
I'm sorry?
I think I may disagree with you a little on that.
Okay.
I mean, you have the 7 feet, it's not gonna affect any safety for getting around the back of the property. You know, it is Florida, we like to enjoy the fact that we live in Florida, especially with our family and our children. You know, the weather out now is beautiful, to be able to dine outside, dining on a deck that's 4 feet wide, the door has to open 36 inches out into.
I
Does not really
totally
lend itself
under-
to being able to do that.
totally understand.
I have a question, and I don't mean to cut anyone off.
We would have to reopen the hearing and give him additional rebuttal time. but
Okay,
that
well, I'll
is-
pause on that until we finish
so I
deliberation.
mean, I'm looking for, I mean, I feel like there's a hardship there, but I'm looking for if you come with us, if it's not a usable play area to the side, if he removes that, it makes an area where his kids can play, and then if he was able to, because if he tried to reconfigure this and make the deck to gain the square footage wider at the existing setback that it's at, even still, it's in violation. But at that level, and try to make it wider, he'd have to get a variance for that anyway. It's still not a very usable deck. And it cuts down his backyard, almost unusable. Right now, he has a play area on the west side.
Right.
Where you
And
can
I'm
put a
assuming
pool
that's why
later, you
it's
can
there.
put it just keeps it a usable backyard without just making the whole deck. So I think that there is a hardship there, but he needs to express that.
Well, and on the side yard, where it should be 7 feet, it's already 6.4. So even there, we've got a, encroachment on the side yard setback.
I don't think we were given the side yard setbacks.
I'm not saying that, I'm saying that there's a lot of stuff on this piece of property already.
that-
It's right here, 6.4.
Okay.
So-
I believe the side might be 5, depending on the zoning.
To get the zoning, yeah.
Yeah.
In either case, he's not asking for that, so.
No. Stephen, can you answer that? Side yard setback?
Well, wait, are we opening the hearing or?
No, but this is discussion between us, and
Okay.
he is part of us.
Okay.
Yeah, so looking at the survey, an RS50 property would have 7-foot side setbacks. When you're looking at the survey, it looks like it's
Does
called
say
out at 6.6,
And 6.4 right above.
at
it.
6.4, but I did not see, if you guys look under the previous applications, anything to reduce the setbacks.
Right.
So I don't know if the surveyor could have taken it from the fence line. That part's not called out. But if there was no reduction in setbacks on this site. That I can speak to.
Okay, but it is 7 feet.
Yes. So this house should sit 7 feet from the property lines
Yeah.
as permitted back in, I believe, I think it was 2016. I think it was built. Don't quote me on that, though. Yeah. 2002.
Okay, fairly recent.
The other thing, he clearly stated on here, he's not enclosing it, which is always a problem, right? We want to make sure that that's there, so I think that there's some,
If you see that as a
it's not, that's not
hardship?
hardship, enclosing it, but it allows me to kind of get my head around, if he was able to express a hardship there, then I would support it, but I gotta see a hardship. before I can do it.
Go ahead, make a motion.
Well, hold on, I'm not done. I have a question. Well, this is for us to deliberate and then if we need to. But if it's got a roof attached and I think we would need to condition it so it's not enclosed. Because even if they're offering it, it's not recorded anywhere. But then number 2, would power be running through it? Because, if it's covered, would it have a fan or something like that? And that's just an aside. I don't know how it would necessarily play into anything. It would just be a point for us to make if we,
That wouldn't affect the motion, but if you were going to approve, you would want to condition it, it would always stay, open.
Yeah, that would
It would not be enclosed and air conditioned.
Did you have another question that you wanted to reopen the question?
no, I think that would satisfy it. That's why I wanted to flesh it out a little bit, if that's,
I think that was covered.
okay.
Does anybody else want to make a motion?
I can't.
I know.
I mean, if it were from
I-
20 to 10, or, it's like we've
I
got
just-
7, and 6.4.
Can I make a motion to reopen the question period with the applicant?
You do.
Okay.
Second?
I'd make a move for reopen the questioning period with the applicant.
Second?
All in favor? Any objections?
So, trying real hard to help you out here, but you gotta give me some more. I don't see a hardship, so unless you come up with a hardship, do you have any more information you can provide us that would give us that?
Yes, it's more, in doing it this way, I'm able to then remove the deck on the western portion and have more of a yard on the western portion, or again, recreation area for the children. And also, I just wanted to point out as well, maybe not the greatest illustration, but that existing deck is 10 feet deep. I don't have a feasibility study showing this, but a standard 6-seat dining set with chairs pulled out and people sitting on it, it's right on the edge. And that to me is a danger to anyone sitting on that deck. So, and even getting a slightly larger dining set and flipping it the long way, 18 feet would be a sufficient length for a full set as well as walk-around area, so no one's at risk of falling off a 15-inch platform.
So, how far are you asking to extend the deck from where it currently is?
From the rear of the house, 18 feet. It's
But it currently is how far off the rear
10.
house? 10. So it's an additional 8 feet.
correct.
again, you gotta help us. I don't hear the hardship of just saying that I'd like a larger deck doesn't necessarily a hardship. You've gotta show us a little bit of why wouldn't it fit? Why wouldn't a deck honestly within the current zoning, which would actually reduce the deck that you have, down, what, 10 feet off of it right now? Is it?
Based on the-
How far is it into your,
Based on the 20-foot rear setback, the deck would only be able to be 5 feet deep.
okay, so, and that seems like a more relatively easy one to prove that a 5-foot deck is not very usable.
Right.
So that's an easy one, so now give us a hardship why you need to extend it beyond 5 feet, which is what you're zoned for right now.
So the hardship beyond the 10 feet that's there
To go
today?
from a 5-foot deck to a 18-foot deck, what is your hardship that would require that?
To
'Cause
have.
right now, you're
ample-
only zoned for a 5-foot deck. You have a 12, but you're in violation, and you theoretically would have.
It's 10, sorry, 10.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
It's a 10-foot deck currently.
Right, currently, right now, you're 5 foot into the, so really, it's only a 5-foot deck that you're allowed to have.
Correct.
To meet code, you would have to take 5 feet off of your deck right now, so you're in violation. And that's, you could get a variance for that a lot easier, but why do you need the extra 8 feet? So why do you need, from a 5-foot, which you're zoned for right now, to an 18-foot deck? What is the hardship that you need that?
Safety, and for having a covered play area for my children that is at level with the back of the house, walking out onto it without risk of falling off an 18 or 15-foot drop-off. As well as having some seating area for, that is illustrated in this picture, is really not enough room for just the general.
Okay, we are beating this
Yeah.
dead horse. Would you like me to
I'm
see
good.
the
I'm good.
gavel so I can make a motion? I'd be happy to do that, and it's been done before.
I'll go ahead and move to close the public hearing, or
Okay,
or do you actually do
all
that?
right.
I think you have to call it, right?
Well, we had closed it, opened it and reclosed it, so yes, move to close the public hearing. No objections?
Does he get rebuttal? Do we need to get from that?
Yes, does he? He's got nothing
How
to say.
He wants
much,
it.
how much else can we
hasn't-
rebut?
he's-
I just want to make sure we're procedurally correct, so.
I mean, you've asked him questions, is he gonna rebut?
I don't
I
know.
don't know what, yeah, okay.
I have no
Nobody's-
rebuttal.
yeah, okay.
Okay. All right. So board discussion or a motion? Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'd have
I
to
know.
cede the gavel to you if I were to make a motion.
I don't really want to make a motion.
I mean, I'll make it, it's not the motion you want, but we'll see if it gets a second. If not, then you will have to make your motion. I will move that the variance request for VRB 25-10 for the property located at 3705 West San Pedro Street be granted as depicted on the site plan as presented at the public hearing for a reduction in the rear setback from 20 feet to 7 feet with an encroachment for eaves and gutters based upon the applicant presenting competent substantial evidence in the record and at this public hearing of an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 27-80 of the city code, specifically that to utilize the backyard with a covered area to protect his children and also to create additional play area off to the west and preserve some additional pervious surfaces. The extension of this deck would provide space for his children to play safely and also have an area for some outdoor seating. Additionally, we do need to condition this, that the exterior covered patio or porch area be never enclosed or air conditioned.
Second?
Have a second.
We have a motion. All those in favor of the motion as stated signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you.
Next case.
Oh, sure, yeah. Sure, sure. You want, here's the full set. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
The next case on the agenda is VRB-25-12. The owner is CRDV West Tampa LLC. The property is 2132 West Main Street. The zoning is commercial intensive, and this is a request to deviate from the West Tampa overlay signage requirements. So this is two requests. One is to increase the square footage of allowed signage from 50 square feet, which is 25 square feet per business, to 188.86 square feet. And then it's to increase the number of signs from 2 signs to 9 signs. This is the code section, section 27-241, West Tampa overlay standards, which this will be kind of a breakdown. The parcel is permitted to have more than one building sign per Article 6, City of Tampa Code ordinances. And then basically it talks about sign spacing. And then since these 2 businesses are housed within the same building, they're allowed 2 signs. And then the total signage shall not exceed 25 square feet per business. So that's where those 2 requests come from. The previous action is there's multiple BLD permits for the remodeling of the existing structure. This is a overall view of the site, showing the 2 buildings. This is a breakdown of the sign plan, and we'll break this down by elevation as well. So these are the 8 signs being represented. Co-hatch signs, work, meet, live, Barbecue King, main entrance placard, Barbecue King mural, co-hatch round logo, a letter track, and then a low wall sign. So this is the site plan for the north side of the building. You can see the GX47, which calls out work, meet, live, right here on this portion. That runs across like a canopy cover. Then you have the co-hatch, the first co-hatch sign. And then you have the Barbecue King sign across the overhang here. And then the mural that was called out in the data sheet. We're gonna move to the west side, which has a co-hatch logo up on the 2nd floor with the green striping down the side of the building. This is the east side logo, which just the east side of the building. It has a white co-hatch with like some lighting above it. And then this is a detached structure that has the co-hatch and then like a message board style sign that would be attached on this secondary structure. So all reviewers found it consistent or have no comment. And then here are your standards for the variance again, 2780, application for variance power. And then I will be available for any comments, questions, or concerns about either the signage or the overlay standards.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here?
Good evening. Thank you. Greg Malik, 5270 Northeast 20th Terrace. So as he said, my customer, they're just looking, this is a larger multi-tenant area. So they're just looking to add some square footage and signage to their plan. I did want to point out firstly, let me throw this down here. So I wanted to give you guys just a rundown of the type of signage that they're requesting, because maybe that has some influence. So the Barbecue Kings up here and the Work, Meet, Live, those are actual fabricated letters, like metal, or I should say aluminum letters. But moving to like the co-hatch that's on the front of the building here, that is actually just a applied vinyl with heat, so it actually like kind of melts into the brickwork on front. And then moving over to the side, this is actually a painted logo, so that's not going to be any sort of structural fabricated sign. Same thing on the other side of the building, again a painted logo as well. And Moving to the main entrance, this is an actual fabricated sign that they're gonna have out front, just directing all the traffic through the main entrance. Like we said, it's a larger multi-tenant building. In addition, they do have their multi-workspace, which is the Cohatch portion, and then the Barbecue King has that other portion. So we're trying to, kind of make it work for everyone, as far as, both businesses. Like I said, both elevations for the Cohatch are painted, fabricated letters across the front awning here. And then same thing, Barbecue King logo on the front exterior wall. That is going to be paint as well. This is the Barbecue King fabricated letters. Those will be going on the front awning, just as I showed you earlier. Now, out back to the left side of the building, let's see here. Right over here, they have it's a little storage container, and that is going to be basically their live music venue, dance floor area. And so what they're requesting for that is strictly just sorry about that. So first thing is going to be this fabricated sign here. This is a piece of plastic, with a vinyl logo attached to it. Nothing, crazy fabricated as far as metal materials, anything like that. Next to that, that is a changeable copy reader board, and that is to announce, the acts and the dates. Like I said, these two specifically are going to be set back in the rear of the parking lot, so they're not necessarily going to be main site when you're driving down past the location. And I know, it seems drastic asking for such an increase in square footage, but I was reading through the code that was referenced, and they did mention that we could get 1.25 square feet per foot of frontage. And since this is such a large piece of property, technically, it calculates out to, I think, around 131 square feet if I go with that calculation. I know on the flip side, the code does state that, one storefront sign per frontage. I understand that, but I just wanted to kind of point that out, that they are taking over a large amount of space. And, Cohatch, I don't know if you guys are familiar with what they do, but they are a communal working space for either startup companies or, things of that nature. They give them, technology, places to work and start their businesses. So they like to at least, have some recognition so people can find them, and obviously, come in and excel their businesses.
Okay. Does that conclude your presentation?
It does, thank
Okay.
you.
Is there anyone in the audience here to speak for or against? Steve, do you have some comments? Oh. Have you guys been sworn in? I saw,
We have not.
okay, so,
You want to raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to
I
tell
saw
the
them
truth,
come
the
in.
whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you.
go ahead.
Aloha and good evening, board. I come here on behalf of Cohatch.
Please state your name, address,
Hi.
and that you've been sworn
Yes.
in. Yeah, thank you.
Tanya Lahote, 810 Weston Park Drive.
Have you been sworn?
I'm sorry.
That you've been sworn in?
Yes, and I have been sworn in,
And
sir.
is that address in Tampa or?
No, I'm actually I flew in from Ohio.
Okay, then
Yes.
go ahead and give us your
Yes.
full address, please.
Yes, so Tanya Lahote, 810 Weston Park Drive, Palo, Ohio.
Okay,
I come here on behalf of Cohatch to please encourage the board at this variance hearing. Obviously, as we have stated before, we're looking to increase the square footage for our store, for the Cohatch location here in West Tampa. If you're familiar with the area, 2138 West Main Street is going through a revitalization. And Cohatch, our mission is to strengthen communities, improve lives, and it is our passion to also revitalize these historic buildings. So this West Tampa location is actually 120 years old now. And we have done a full renovation of the entire space that we're very proud to present to the Tampa community. That being said, we humbly request that the board please consider not only for the Cohatch signage and logos, but also we did also inherit and invite the Barbecue King, a fourth generation local to West Tampa in that area, small family-owned barbecue food and beverage restaurant. So on behalf of Cohatch, we humbly ask that the board please consider our request for the additional square footage for our signage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Board. I have been sworn in. My name is Adriana Iraso. My address is 916 West 5th Street. I live in Lakeland, Florida. And I also want to speak in support of Cohatch coming in. It's been made mention what Cohatch does. Obviously, we offer co-working, private offices, meeting and event space, but really it's so much more than that. As Tanya mentioned, Cohatch is committed to the revitalization and the restoration of its communities that they are located within. And so this particular building, there's a lot of passion and drive behind that when we showcase this building. We do a little over 1,000 tours at opening, believe it or not, where we talk about the history of that building. And so when we acquired this particular building from Amelia and Tiffany from Barbecue King, there was a lot of beautiful stories and history behind it that we want to share with the community. And just so that you guys are aware as well, we have already started selling some of the offices. We have many Tampa constituents there, as well as a representative of the U.S. government. So we want to make sure that this location really looks beautiful for its community. Thank you again for your support. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Daniela Swaznavar. Address is 4410 Perch Street in Tampa, Florida, and I have been sworn in. I am the community manager for this location. Luckily, I've been blessed to be sort of running this location, and I have been giving tours now of that space for about 2 years. And I'm just excited to cultivate a great community in that space. I have had a pleasure of working at all of our other Cohatch locations as well. And I mean, just the people that I've given tours to and that have signed up can't express their enough excitement for that location. So I'm just here in support. I'm also here to invite you guys if you ever want to come by and visit the space. But yeah, thank you so much for hearing us out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Well, you have 5-minute rebuttal, but after those glowing reviews, I don't know what else you could possibly add.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I'm good, I don't need it, thank you.
Thank you. Close public hearing and hear from the board.
I just have one question, clarification. It looks like through the plans, what you were talking about, there's only one lit sign. That's the one up top, that's the painted sign. There's no flashing LEDs, there's no, everything
correct.
else is applied or painted.
Correct, there are no flashing LEDs, nothing along those lines. The only illuminated sign,
I think you cruised past it 2 pages ago. Oh, there it is. You could keep going. You got it. The next page. Just this one right here, right? That's got the lights kind of.
oh, so
down.
yes, I apologize. Yeah, so this does have gooseneck lighting above it, but it's not a fabricated sign that has
There's no
internal
backlight or anything.
LEDs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
So it's both of those on either side?
Yes, that is correct.
Is the thought process there that those are there so you can see them as you approach from either direction on the street?
Exactly, yeah, coming, whatever way down the street, yes.
Yeah, it's tough to see the sign in the front.
I think it's a really cool building, and I like that you're saving it and what they're doing here. I mean, we're in board discussion, but I think it's very well done, and I would be happy to support it.
I have another question before we officially close. For the exterior, I think it's the last, we were on it for a while, the page with like the container that would have, yes. So would that be illuminated as well? The one with the writing, not this one necessarily,
Oh,
but,
so, yes, that actually is correct. So the changeable copy, that interior illumination, I do apologize, that is correct.
Where on the site is that located? I don't know if you have a
yeah,
site plan.
I just wanted to understand that
Where,
location.
on the site?
Right,
So this is the main street here, and on the back side of the parking lot.
Okay.
So basically towards the back side of the building there.
and for staff, I mean, has that had has that an because it's not part of the building. So has it received approval to exist?
So for that structure to exist in the back, it would have to go through permitting. It would have to meet all building codes. Like we see with a lot of the containers, they do have to go through like an upgrade process almost to meet the standard codes. So if that is permitted, it is allowed to exist. If it's not permitted, it would have to be removed, and then you couldn't put signs on it. So any structure that would have the signs on it would have to be a permitted structure. And then since these are detached signs, that would all have to go through permitting. The other painted and vinyl signs on the existing structure would not go through permitting. If that
Okay,
makes-
so,
Because these are separated signs from the structure, they would have to go through permitting to review how they are fastened. So at that time, they would review if they have any issues with the detached structure that's there.
okay, because the second variance is to go from 2 to 9, and 2 signs are gonna be attached to that structure.
That is-
So I just am trying to make sure that if we word anything, it's kind of identifying that fact. Because technically, if we're making a variance from 2 to 9, that's for the building, I think. So they could take those signs off that structure and put them somewhere else, potentially.
They would be locked into this site plan, like
Okay.
any other variance.
Okay,
So with them calling out all the locations, their signs have to go and follow those locations.
okay,
Similar to like if you would do like a master sign plan to spit up all your square footages, you're still locked into those locations
okay.
and
That's very
attached to this site plan.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I have any more questions.
Okay. We were still kind of in board discussion. I'll close it, and is somebody ready to make a motion?
Sure. You ready, come? Go ahead. Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to move that the variance request for VRB 25-12 for property located at 2132 Main Street be granted as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing for an increase in sign square footage from 50 square feet to 188.86 square feet, and an increase from 2 signs to 9 signs be granted based upon the applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence in the record and at this public hearing of an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 2780 of the city code, but specifically that this is an older structure, 120 years old to be exact, that has been fully renovated. There are 2 businesses coming in to inhabit the structure, each of which is trying to bring some revitalization to the area, and each would need to be displaying their businesses appropriately. And therefore requiring more signage to do so.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise? Your variance passes 4-0.
Thank you very much. Everyone have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This brings us to the last case on tonight's agenda, VRB-25-14. The owner is Michael and Mikhail Germain. The applicant is Gardner Brewer Hudson. The property address is 3414 West Lakes Avenue. The zoning is residential single family, RS 100. And the request is to reduce the east yard setback from 7 feet to 5 feet. Section 27-156, table 4-2, the setbacks for RS 50 are 25 feet from the front, 20 feet from the rear, and 7 feet on the sides. This is the property outlined in the orange hash line. This is a site plan depicting the area of the addition being requested. As you can see, it continues the line of the house, and then it goes across the back. Here's a zoom in of that. So per the site plan, they're actually at 5 foot 4.5 inches. But for the allowance of human error, they requested 5 feet. Natural Resources found it consistent in condition since it's an addition to the existing house to kind of fill in a cutout space. They're not going to be impacting any trees or their overall green space percentages. Transportation, wastewater, water, right-of-way, stormwater, and TECO all found it consistent or consistent with conditions. This is the criteria for the Variance Review Board. And I'm available for any questions or concerns.
Good evening, Addie Clark, 400 North Ashley Drive. I do have a presentation. I will just scoot that over. Okay. All right. Good evening, Addie Clark, 400 North Ashley Drive, here on behalf of Mikkel and Michael Germain, the owners of 3414 West Lakes Avenue. So you can see here, this is looking at the home. They've been owners of the home for almost 10 years. Here we're looking at the front of the home, so looking south on Lakes Avenue. It's a single family home built over 102 years ago in 1923. And we are here before you tonight because we are requesting, as Stephen mentioned, a new screened-in backyard porch. And you can see here the request from 7 feet to 5 foot as a side yard is simply asking to match, to be either to match or to be in line, if you will, with the eastern side of the existing home. And so you can see the blue is filling in that hole, if you will, with a 1-story screened-in porch. We believe that this is an appropriate location for this, given the relatively small size of the site and existing constraints such as the pool just to the south. And again, this is aligned with the home today, which has a 5 foot and change setback to the east. And here, I think this aerial does a really good job of showing that the request is really filling in that hole again on the east with that blue box. And there is an existing large masonry wall to the east that runs just north of where the proposed screened-in porch would be and almost all the way to the south of the property, and that has continued to remain, so we do believe that's providing sufficient screening to the east as well. And then here's a site photo looking north exactly at this space, or this hole, if you will, where the porch is proposed and where it will be in line with that existing wall. And in the graphic to the east, looking at a profile view, just wanted to reiterate that the porch will be 1 story screened in, so we grade out the second story of the existing home in the back. And we do have a detailed justification memo that has been submitted to the record, but just wanted to summarize here. Again, the home, we believe that this request is unique and singular, not self-created, and will not interfere with others. Again, the home was built over 100 years ago with this unique shape. And again, that is well prior to zoning regulations, and we will not be increasing these side yard setbacks that have been in existence for that long. And again, as I mentioned, the pool is a constraint to the south, so we really feel that this hole is the only location where that screened-in backyard porch can't fit. And again, the porch is intended to be in line and flush with the existing home to create a nice screened-in space that offers a transition from the pool area in the backyard to the internal home. And again, this is the least intrusive option while still allowing reasonable use here of this spot. And there are multiple comprehensive plan policies that we believe support this request, but especially wanted to highlight land use policy 1.2.18, which supports repeating existing building lines, which is exactly what we're doing here. And we are very happy to have the support of multiple nearby neighbors, and those letters of support have been uploaded to the record. Just wanted to point out that the adjacent property just to the east is actually a vacant lot, so as the home was demolished last year. And our clients did reach out to them and have not heard any concerns or questions on that. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, is there anyone here to speak for or against? Questions from the board?
Is there any way you can go to the slide that was right before this really quickly?
Yes.
Is the property line in, okay, just making sure. So the yellow is where, I see where we're located or where you're located, but there's a red dash. Okay, there we go.
Yes, yep, sorry, I should have pointed this. So we are the orange or red star.
Okay.
And then, so here's the eastern property line and the vacant lot to our east.
Okay, got it. It's a very narrow lot for the block, it looks like.
Yes, yeah, compared to the others, yes.
Yeah, 1923, they did things a little differently.
Thank you.
Okay. Rebuttal? No. Okay, close the public hearing and board discussion.
Yeah, this is pretty straightforward. I don't think this requires any discussion. I'll definitely support it.
I agree with you.
So, any other discussion? With that, I will move that the variance request for case VRB 25-14 for property located at 3414 West Lakes Avenue be granted as depicted on the site plan presented with the public hearing for a reduction in the side yard setback from 7 feet to 5 feet with encroachment for eaves and gutters, based upon the applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence to the record of the public hearing and necessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria as set forth in 27-80 of the city code, specifically that this keeps in line with the existing house, which was built way before codes or easement, or I'm sorry, setbacks were established, and therefore it's consistent with the neighborhood and with the intention of the house.
You have a motion, is there a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor of the motion as stated signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise? Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
And unless we have any other discussions, stand adjourned.